Tell you what, how can it be Thursday at 6 o'clock again? I know, unbelievable.
Crazy.
He's already here. He is the hunk of hemp. He is the Maharaja of marijuana. He is the Count. I'm going to get that wrong one day. Of cannabinoids, Mr. Ollie Mammon.
What's up? What's up? Yo, yo, yo. How are we all today? Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Absolutely. We're waiting for our guest. We do have a guest, which of course, as ever, Ollie has found, but not there here at the moment.
So we can start with the introduction and we can play the advert and we can do everything until he comes.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play the ad.
Hell yeah.
Hell
do that.
I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD, a product created by users for users, a product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
Do I love
here
that.
yet?
He may be not. Do the introduction, and then I'll introduce him. He is here.
Just making sure he's here, okay? I could chat for like 15 minutes about something else until he gets
we know
here.
that. We know. We could talk about your Jeep.
We could talk about my Jeep non-stop.
Which is jacked.
And then when I actually make this post accidentally in Jeeps on the Run on Facebook, they won't get upset with me.
I can't wait. I can't wait to actually meet you after 68 shows.
We take you for a little drive.
Yeah, that's what
Take you for a little drive to the whiskey club, and then I'll drop you home. Anyway, got all that out the system.
Jeep to go through London.
As you can tell, today's going to be a little bit less of a serious episode. Our guest today is actually wonderful. He's got a really beautiful story. Okay. I actually met him about 4 years ago to the day. He's like, I really like him, but it's going to be a bit more of a light episode as compared to the last few weeks, and it's going to be a bit more of a conversation as opposed to a deep, dark life story. So hopefully, me and Russ won't cry tonight unless it's.
Well, they will. I tell you, you've had some belters recently, man.
I've been on this path. I want to make everyone as depressed as me. That's my plan. All right, so I want to make everyone.
I'm not sure that's humanly possible, but
it's not possible. No, it's not possible. Now, I basically want people to see the dark side of the reason why people end up choosing cannabis.
I don't see it as. I gotta disagree. I don't see it as the dark side. I see it as the very human side because of you and because of your guest, you have completely converted me. No ifs or buts.
Yeah, I know. And you're part of the people we're trying to convert. So hopefully there's one or two others out there who we've converted, and I've done my job. If I can influence one other person to literally find salvation, find their hope in cannabis, done my bit. Don't need to do anything else.
Just find some help. Just some alleviation from their pain. Anyway, there we are. You do your lovely introduction, then we will bring on Eduardo.
So this week's guest is Edward Milne. Now, I met Ed about 3 years ago at the White Label Expo. At the time, Ed was a medical student. He was curious about the world of cannabis. Mm-hmm. At the time, around the same time, he set up a side company called Ascension Gardens, and they had a few ideas on how to penetrate this cannabis market of ours, partnering up. And Edward partnered up with a pharmacist. Ed continues, as over the last few years, he's continued to dissect and analyze the UK cannabis market, waiting for an opening, searching for his niche and looking for what he could do differently. Considering he's come from a medical perspective, his view of this world is different from, let's say, someone like me who's come at it from a cannabis perspective. Mm-hmm. When I first met Ed, there were not that many CBD brands on the market. The idea of medical cannabis in the UK was new, and the laws had literally just been passed. There were no clinics. There were very few, if any, patients who were actually receiving medical cannabis, and the market was a hell of a lot smaller than it is now, and it was a lot less developed. Over these past few years, we've all seen the market change in different ways. In some ways it's got better, in some ways it's got worse. In some ways there have been, a massive release of products onto the market, but then in other regards, some of these products have not been as efficacious as they could have been. Over the last few years, there have been a hell of a lot more brands which have come onto the market, a hell of a lot more suppliers that have come onto the market. And in the short space of 3 or 4 years, there's been a lot of active change in this UK cannabis market of ours on both sides of the spectrum, on the retail side and on the medical cannabis side. The medical cannabis market has grown slowly and the retail side has grown very quickly, but it's exploded in competition and is greater than ever before. The medical cannabis side, like I said, is still not as big as it could be, but if you compare it to 5 years ago, it's 500, 600, 5,000 times bigger. So like there's been substantial growth on both sides. As we stated last week with Jade, not all CBD products are made equal, and not all CBD products are designed with a logical purpose in mind. One thing Ed's wanted to do since the first time I've met him is actually create products with a purpose, create a system which is patient first, because he comes at it from a medical perspective, because he comes at it with this medical training behind him. He doesn't see it as a commercial journey. He sees it as, actually providing a logical, reliable product to the end users. And it's really been at the core of his ethos since he started. And as Jade said last week, most of the products, if not a large majority of the products on the UK market, are not designed with this in mind. They're designed by capitalists for capitalistic gain, as opposed to being designed for the actual patients who they help. One of the main things I've always liked about Ed is he's never been in a rush. He's never rushed to release a product to market. He hasn't done what everyone else is doing. He didn't want to be another sheep jumping on the cart, following everyone else to this, path of commercialism. He's really tried to, you can call it, slowly analyze and slowly assess the UK market in order to provide the UK market with something that doesn't already exist. Another thing I liked about Ed is that the fact that he's a medical student and he was interested in cannabis. He didn't just dismiss it like so many other medical professionals do, and so many people who are in that medical curriculum, they dismiss the idea of cannabis so quickly. He saw benefit to this plant and he saw it as having a place within modern medicine, which was a very strange perspective, because I've spoken to a lot of medical trainee doctors and none of them really see a place for cannabis, except the doctors who are fully involved in this space. It's very rare to find anyone from the medical profession who sees it as being as valuable as Ed has seen it. And I really like that about him. I like that about him from the very beginning, that he had this ethos in the way he thinks. It's actually very rare. As we've mentioned many times, cannabis is still not being portrayed in a positive way across the medical curriculum, and it's still being demonized and destroyed by the only group in our society who have the potential to actually distribute it. So the only place medical cannabis can come from in the UK is from doctors, and majority of doctors in the UK still push it under the rug and ignore it as being a valuable tool in their doctor's bag. Something is definitely wrong out there, but with this new generation of doctors and this new generation of thought leaders, people like Ed, we might have some hope at the end of the tunnel. There might be a little bit of light out there. Over the past few years, Ed has focused on creating a patient-focused medical cannabis clinic, hopefully increasing the number of prospective patients who have signed up to the medical cannabis system, reducing the price of consultations, reducing the price of prescriptions, building a community and a patient-first system. This is also something which hasn't really been done yet. Most people who have gone down this route of creating medical cannabis systems, medical clinics, have also they targeted it from a very commercial perspective. It's why we've heard over again that prescriptions are extortionately priced, consultations are extortionately priced, and if you're lucky enough to get one, it's not going to be at an affordable price. Ed wanted to do things differently. He has this vision of what a true medical system should look like, and he also has this view of where the current medical system is failing. I've always said that the system won't work properly until doctors and experts start coexisting and working together for the people. I've always said doctors need to learn from the people they're aiming to nurture and help. Ed is living this journey. He's building the relationships and he's using his medically focused brain to build a system which is actually patient focused, because that's what matters. The patients and the consumers are at the core of this industry, and if we don't satisfy them, if we don't give them what they need, then the system's never going to be built properly. So I've got no idea where Russ has gone. I'm going to bring on Ed. Hi, Ed.
I was here. I was letting you speak with your monologue and giving you center stage.
You disappeared. I looked
No,
up and
of course I disappeared. I
Oh.
took myself off screen so that you had center stage.
Hi,
That's
Ed.
Hey.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Very good. Fair introduction.
That was incredible introduction. No, thank you. That's yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
It's pretty logical, though. So I met you, like we were laughing about this yesterday. I met you 3.5 years ago at the White Label Expo. It was, I don't know if it was November 2018 or November 2019. I think it was 2018, but 19. I'm not sure. 19. So it's like best part of 2.5, 3 years ago. And I definitely took an interest in you straight away. I actually remember the conversation we had, and it was very rare because, you know, since that time, I think you and I think there's one other person who we've had on the show who have had this, you call it a young medical training. Do you know what I mean? You've been in that system. You've come from that part of the world and you've chosen to join our part of the world. And there aren't that many of you. There really, really aren't. There's you. I think there's Dr. Barron, but Dr. Barron is still involved in normal medicine anyway. And then Christopher Tasker. Christopher Tasker is the only other person I know who's come from a PhD medical background, like a medical research background, but he's focused mainly on cannabis his entire journey. And it's strange. Like, I mean, I'm sure you're going to tell us otherwise, but I mean, out of like, from your classmates, how many of your classmates have pursued the route of cannabis over traditional medicinal routes?
One, just me so far.
Exactly. And why?
Out of how many, Ed? Out of how many people?
There's about 400 each year. I mean, the medical.
My God.
Yeah, no, there's not many at all. Wow. I think the only other individual is Malamalkin. She's imperial. You know, Dr. Malamalkin. Sorry, she is the only other real medic that I've seen that's graduated. You know, as recent as myself. And yeah, obviously you mentioned Dr. Leon Barron, obviously Professor Mike Barnes, but there's Dr. Harrison Offyong. There's a few doctors.
But they're not young, are they? Well, Mike Barnes, God bless him, is not young. Do you know what I mean? Also, Dr. Barron, Dr. Barron's not young. Do you know what I mean? Dr. Barron's my age. You know, we're like 30, 35 years old. He's not young. Yeah. And he is young. He is young.
Sorry, are you saying 35 isn't young?
No, I'm saying, let me rephrase that. 35 is not fresh out of school.
I've got your ass.
35 is not fresh out of school, Russ. Do you know what I mean? And the whole idea is when I met Ed was still studying. Ed was like Ed was still in the midst of studying when he had this drive bringing him towards the cannabis. And that's what really attracted me to him, because it's not really something you see. You know, like my cousin's girlfriend, I don't know, maybe they're engaged now. My cousin's girlfriend, my cousin's fiance is a medical student. She won't even humor a conversation with me about cannabis. She laughs. It's like a giggle. And I brought it up to her. I wanted to understand why they're not teaching cannabis across the medical curriculum. And she laughed. And I was just like, all right, I get it. Because that's the way I assume that's the way they're being trained. I think I'm going to make quite a few fleeting statements today on this episode, but if I offend any doctors, I really do apologize. I'm not meaning to offend you. I'm just trying to kick you into gear. That's the honest truth. I'm trying to provoke a reaction from you. So if I do offend you, please don't get offended. Please make a change. Please help people. Disclaimer done. Now, Ed, let's talk about you, my brother. Thank you so much for joining us. I finally got you on the show. It's only taken 68 weeks of begging.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. You know, sorry I didn't come on sooner, but it's obviously the timing is right now, and I'm very happy to be here and very happy to discuss everything medical cannabis, really.
Amazing. And everything happens in the correct time. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Russ, you want to say something?
No.
Are you sure?
Not at all.
You can if you want. I feel bad. I keep on interrupting you.
I don't. Not in the least. I'm listening to Ed. I'm just wondering what took him 68 weeks to get here.
Busy. We've been sorry. We've been absolutely chock-a-block in the pharmacy. So it's now is the time to start speaking about our experiences and essentially trying to, I don't know, help those on the front line like yourselves to spread the word, really. You know,
course.
let's start spreading the word, and let's start aligning our agendas, aligning our messages, and let's really. I'm keen to bring a lot of the good work that everyone's doing together, and let's just add our voice to it, really. So,
Hell yeah,
all for it.
So listen, Ed, I want everyone to kind of believe in you and fall in love with you as much as I have. So that's the aim for today, is for you to kind of, like share your story, and for you to kind of, get everyone thinking the way you're thinking as well. So let's just start. What was your first experience of medical cannabis? What made you click into this world? What made you realize that this little green plant might be such a valuable addition to the doctor's tool bag? And what made you see things that no one else in your class was seeing? Like what sort of glasses did you have on that made you see something that no one else wants to acknowledge?
So, I mean, we first entered the space. I mean, to start right at the start, myself and Shay, my business partner, we came up with the idea of joining the cannabis space. We're in a Wetherspoons car park, and we were just talking. Every time we come back from uni, we'd always talk. And we decided to go into the CBD industry. After a bit of time in the CBD industry, I was fortunate enough to meet yourself, Ollie, and you steered us in the right direction, essentially away from the CBD oils and towards doing essentially the pharmacy. And now it was in terms of my own personal views. So look, I'm going to be completely transparent. When I first came into the space, it was mainly for CBD oils. I saw, the opportunity to start a business. I've always been quite entrepreneurial, and I saw the entrepreneurial side of medicinal cannabis rather than the medical benefits of medical cannabis. Now, it was only when I started speaking to more people, and I was fortunate enough again to speak to Professor Mike Barnes, but it was Hannah Deacon when I sat down with her. And this is what I loved about the cannabis space. In the early days, everyone was so friendly. Everyone was so willing to talk. And nice. My daughter's what it says. Oh, brilliant.
And then there were four.
And then there were
She doesn't like to be away because we're so together all the blooming time. For her, lockdown was Christmas for 2 years. So I'm so sorry. That's why I had to.
I'm happy to have a little dog as a co-host.
Yeah, no, what's
no, she writes my scripts.
But yeah, no, the medical benefits of medical cannabis, that came when my grandfather was quite ill, and I was speaking to, so he's in Nigeria, and I was speaking to my mum at the time, and appetite was an issue. He was palliative at the time, and he wasn't taking any of his medications. And I spoke to my mum and I said, has anyone considered cannabis, as an option? And obviously Nigeria is my mum's very religious, very orthodox country, and they sourced cannabis for him, and he had a turnaround. He did unfortunately still pass away, but that was the first time I thought, oh my goodness, like this is real. It's like one of those situations,
but
like
you
can't
planted
believe
the
it.
seed. Wait, hold on. You planted the seed in your mum's mind. Now I've got a question. Do you reckon you coming from a medical perspective and you having almost this patch on your shoulder, which means that I am medically qualified, do you reckon that helped your mum to listen to you? Because I know loads of people who have turned around to their grandparents, been like, "Look, I know you're you're not in a good place. Have you tried cannabis as a palliative care? I mean, have you tried that?" And what most of the time people get is can't away with that. Like they almost knock it away, almost like it's a fly. Like they don't want to hear it. Do you reckon it was because you had that medical background why your mother and your grandpa were relatively receptive to the idea?
Yeah, I think it does help, but then it does also have its hindrances. I'm sure, as you've experienced, the medical profession, we're quite averse to hearing new things and learning new things. Oh, we hate it. And you
guys hate it. I mean, literally hate it. It's ridiculous. It's
that's not
ridiculous.
That's not entirely true. I mean,
I think the only reason we have the metric system in the only reason we use both the metric system and the other system is because
imperial.
There we go. Imperial and metric is because doctors can't agree with everyone else.
They're the worst.
But in fairness to doctors who I have a lot of time for, the number of symposiums they go to, the meetings that they attend, the lectures that they attend, the specialists that I know, They're always trying to learn. I know not in this field, but it's unfair to just tarnish them with just one brush and say,
Oh,
they're not.
that's
They're
why I
not
gave the
learning.
disclaimer. That's why I
Because
gave the disclaimer at the beginning of the
I
episode.
didn't cover this. Didn't cover this. Your disclaimer as an ex-lawyer, your disclaimer was wafer thin.
Can you add some? So be my lawyer, protect me. This is your job, Russ. This is why you're here.
No, it's not my job. My job
I know it's not your job.
is running my radio station.
I know it's
your
not.
job
I know
is
it's not.
not to get me in deep poo. So that's what I'm saying. I think doctors are under tremendous strain the whole time. And it just saddens me that you guys, I'm going to lump you all together, cannot ally both of these. I've said this so many times on this show, run them in parallel because they're not in competition with each other. That's my point. Are they? They're not in competition.
Traditional medicine and cannabis medicine.
Traditional medicine and all the medicine that Ollie and you guys do, which is very effective under certain circumstances. No ifs or buts. It is. It's not perfect for everything, but it is absolutely right for some things, as Ollie's brilliant guests have shown. Eddie, you've either slipped into a.
I'm listening. I'm wondering what the question is really. It's I mean, I agree. I think one thing that we've tried to approach medicinal cannabis with is that it's not a magic bullet. It's not here. It's not going to fix everything.
That's
but
right.
it is another option. It should be used in parallel with Western medicine. I'm not here to say, all Western medicine is bad. God, no. It's there's a lot of good things from both types, but let's have some synchronicity. Let's actually have a symbiotic relationship between medicinal cannabis and Western medicine. Let's see how we can incorporate the two, not just
here's another thing.
One or the other.
But here's another thing. It's also, look, in order to know if something's wrong or right, it still needs to be discussed. If you just ignore something and you're negligent to it, it's not wrong, it's not right. You've chosen to ignore it. So it's that whole idea of like, I'm completely cool for the doctors to have the discussion and then like mark it as void, but at least have the discussion. And I feel like that's the biggest problem at the moment. Doctors aren't even willing to have the discussion. They're not even willing to take that 2 steps forward to then take 4 steps back. Take the 2 steps forward, take the 4 steps back if you have to, but at least try and take those 2 steps forward, even if it means you have to go back in reverse. And I feel like that's the biggest issue.
I would argue and say they're not necessarily averse to having the conversation. It's just that they're almost unaware. The only things we're taught about cannabis in medical school is, the only thing I was taught was that it causes psychosis, unfortunately.
So it's only the negative still.
So they're still saying that. They're still saying that.
And can we say one thing? When was this, Ed? Because just to put things in perspective, that you are relatively fresh out of medical school. This wasn't 10 years ago. This was 2 years ago, right?
Graduated last year.
Yeah, so you graduated last year. So it's very important to put things into perspective for our viewers. When it hasn't changed yet. It hasn't changed in the last year, and over the 5-7 years that Eddie was studying, it didn't change, and there was no positive connotation around cannabis in any way. Other countries around the world are starting to include cannabis as a positive educational topic in the field of medicine. It's starting, but we're still not doing that here. And worst of all, it's still being demonized, which is dangerous. It's dangerous to turn around and tell a doctor that something which is legally a medicine in the UK is actually detrimental to health. It's so counterintuitive. I want to ask you a question, Eddie. Why? Why do you think that this is happening? As in, I don't want you getting in trouble. I don't want you getting your medical degree taken away from you or anything like that. Why do you reckon this is happening? Because from my perspective, it seems stupid. That's the honest truth. It just seems stupid that the conversation is not being had. But there's got to be a reason. There's always method to madness, and I just don't understand the method. Maybe you do.
There's a long answer and a short answer. I mean, the short answer is obviously there's a long answer. There's different reasons for why it's happened. Obviously, the whole war on drugs, the lack of medical evidence, and obviously the medical evidence, traditionally has always been for a single type of drug, a single monomolecule. Whereas obviously, in order to get the level of randomized controlled trials for medicinal cannabis, is something that is still not been done yet, because obviously there's quite a lot of compounds within cannabis itself. So there's a lot of reasons, and I mean that's probably a whole conversation in itself. But money again, it's
But then
a lot
once
of
again,
pharmaceutical companies.
if the test is designed to fail, so their test, this random, this randomized controlled trials and whatever, that's a test, and that test is designed to fail when it comes to cannabis. I'm pretty sure they should just design a new test. I mean, if you give a test to a dyslexic child who can't understand the test and he fails, it's not the kid's fault. And we're in that certain world where, it's almost like these doctors are, they're creating a rod for their own back, and they're creating a no before it even go. They're creating so many walls which can't be penetrated with this idea. They're almost creating this blockade before they even get a chance to open it up. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Vaguely. Could you elaborate?
So you have this. So the doctors are like the random controlled trials. We can't test it. We can't see how valid it is. We can't see if it works. So what happens is they've already created the hypothesis of this is not going to work. The prediction is already this is not going to work. How is a scientist ever going to prove that something's going to work if they've already created the prediction that it's not? If the test and the analysis is designed to fail the item being tested, I'm actually making sense here, which is mental. Yeah. If the test is designed,
astonishing, Eddie.
It's ridiculous. I'm speaking, but it actually makes sense. How is this possible? If the test is designed for the idea to fail, then in theory the test should be redesigned.
Yeah,
because it's designed to fail. Like any scientific experiment which you go into needs to have, it should be right, like you said, randomized control. There shouldn't be a direction. It shouldn't be assumed that it's going to succeed or assumed it's going to fail. It should just be assumed to see what happens.
In other words,
it's not a true experiment.
In other words, the parameters of the test perhaps need to be re-examined.
Yes.
I think
well done, Russ. The parameters of the test need to be remodified.
Thanks very much, Oliver. So that's, I think, a fascinating point, and I'm sure Eddie would agree. I've got another question for Eddie, if I may, because you are like the freshest to come out of medical school that we've had on the show. And it's this. How you've just shocked me, actually, because I asked you, class, in my head, I thought you were going to say 20, 30 people. I said, how many in your class? And you went, 400. And I'm like, okay, that's huge, right? Because I was thinking classroom was just, I'm still at school in my head, right? So you got 400 people. There's just you, nobby no mates, who's going ahead down this path. How difficult is it? This is really key in my view. How difficult is it once you've come out of school, you've been told X, Y, and Z, it's caused psychosis. Let's just hang our hat on that peg for a second. How difficult is it then for you, let's say, or Ollie and the industry, to go around to the 399 other folk who were with you in the class and say, would you like to look at it again?
Yeah, very, very difficult. It's I took a year out from medicine. I'm yet to restart in August. So, ask me in 6 months' time and I'll have a better answer for you. But
you'll be back. You'll be back in 6 months.
I'll be back. Yeah, I'm rejoining.
I'm not taking 68 weeks excuse. Not this time.
yeah.
Have 30 weeks excuse. So when you come back, are you going to be a full-blown doctor? I mean, just explain. Will you go to a clinic, an NHS clinic, or surgery, or how will that be?
Start F1. So between medical school and F1, I took the year obviously because I had to go full-time in the business, and whereas I want to start F1 as a junior doctor, foundation year one.
Thank you. I thought you were joining. Joining Sebastian Vettel. So F1 is for foundation one.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, foundation one,
as opposed to Silverstone, right? Okay, I got that. So let me ask you this: with the knowledge that you have and the fervor that you have, like all Ollie's guests are fervent believers, which is great. It's wonderful to believe in something, right? How difficult will it be for you when Mrs. Jones or Mr. Bloggs comes in, got this, and you're thinking to yourself, you know what? I don't really want to give pharmaceuticals for this. I think if I could suggest X, Y, and Z, cannabinoid or whatever, call it what you will, they'd be better off. How hard is that going to be for you as a doctor?
Yeah, so I mean, those decisions aren't made by myself. They have to be made by a specialist. So what I do, in the pharmacy is I answer as many questions as I possibly can, because traditionally a lot of these patients have a large number of questions. So we try and answer as many as we can. But in terms of how they're treated and which cannabinoid profile, that's dictated by the specialist during the actual consultation.
Right.
So obviously we refer all the patients on to the specialist.
Sure.
See, but the strange thing is last week on the show and 2 weeks ago on the show as well. So we were joined by Jade Proudman last week, and we were joined by Ed McDonald 2 weeks ago. Ed McDonald runs a company called the Cannabis Pages, and Jade Proudman, she's got the Savage Cabbage community.
Savage Cabbage. Yeah.
And basically, they both said the same thing. They're both medical patients. They both have prescriptions. They both consume cannabis for their proprietary medical issues, their ailments. Now, Jade was saying about how the first time she got she went to the doctor wasn't allowed to actually direct her towards a certain strain. The doctor wasn't allowed to direct her towards a cannabis product. And Edward said the same thing. Ed McDonald said the same thing, and that's why he set up his company, was that when he went to the doctor the first time, the doctor prescribed him something which was completely wrong for him. Jade went as far to say that she was prescribed something which was high sativa, high THC, and it actually ended up making her worse and almost gave her a fit, or actually rendered her into a fit. It was horrible, and she said because she's THC intolerant. Now, she had no direction from the doctor. When she asked the doctor, is there anything else you could recommend? Because this doesn't work for me. The doctor's like, we can't actually make recommendations, because that's the problem with specials. All we can do is show you what's available, and it's your job to make your choice about the product. Another issue is all of these products are singular to the dispensary, the clinic who's providing them. So if I was to go to one clinic or another clinic, I have two completely different choices of medication. Fine, there might be similarities between the strains, but in general, it's as similar as a Pepsi and a Coke. They're different. And fact of the matter is...
Hang on. Eddie's. Are you going along with that or not?
That was the case. We're now starting to see a few clinics prescribe a bit wider on their formulary, so they're not as aligned with one product as they used to be, but they're or thereabouts.
As a wearing my punter's hat, okay, because you're the expert, so I'm just every man. Can you explain? I'm going to ask Ed because he's the guest. Explain and extrapolate a bit more what Ollie's saying. So I wander into the clinic and what?
Yeah, so we noticed that some clinics were part of a vertically integrated model, where they are aligned with the distributor and the manufacturer. So traditionally, the prescriptions, if you went to a certain clinic, we noticed that traditionally you would come out with a prescription from a certain manufacturer. However, we're now starting to notice that these clinics are actually starting to prescribe from different manufacturers. So it's not as vertically integrated as it used to be.
Got it.
They're now starting to, doctors are, I think, because the doctors within the clinic, it's ultimately their decision. And so they're not going to prescribe just because the clinic is aligned with the manufacturer. They're going to prescribe what is best for the patient, because we're here to treat the patients, not to
capitalize.
Yeah. Can I put my hand, Ed? Can I put my hand in the hornet's nest, so to speak? In the bad old days of traditional medicine, especially in America, you know that the pharmaceutical companies would go round. And they're salesmen. They want to flog their product. That's what they're doing. The reps are doing that. And it can go anywhere from a pen to a notepad, to a very nice pen, or a really lovely luxury holiday, or a set of golf. I mean, and there's ample evidence for all of that stuff. Are you confident that wouldn't happen with this area of medical care?
It's Ollie's sitting there on the head.
I can see Ollie's head shaking.
Yeah, it's the cannabis space has attracted some nuances of the old pharmaceutical approach, which is a shame. I'm trying to tiptoe around this.
No, but you know what I say every blooming week. If you want to know what's going on in the world, follow the money. It's a horrible truism, but it's always the damn case.
The fact that these farms and these clinics have this monopoly system over the patients who are signed on to the clinic already dictates that there's something wrong. And the fact that if you have a patient at a specific clinic who finds something that he knows is right for him, there's no guarantee the clinic will be able to get it for them. Whereas in reality, the clinic could always get it for them. It's a phone call and it's a purchase. The same way that if I wanted fish from Tesco or fish from Morrison's, I have that choice. Okay. And if I say, you know what, I think the sea bass is better at Morrison's, I really want my sea bass at Morrison's.
Controversy there on men's radio.
But they'll turn and they'll be like, you know what? You can't go to Morrison's. You know, your car won't drive into that driveway. Definitely. Well, no, it can't. You can't. Don't trust Morrison's. You got to go Tesco. It's not. It's already your decisions being made for you.
This is, Ollie. You know what this is? This is when you guys, and I, just mean like the French would say, you start off with what is ostensibly and initially a cottage industry. It's a very small. You know what I mean? It's a tiny little thing. And then the moment, big money. I mean, Ollie has made my head spin week after week with some of the sums he's discussed. The moment that big money comes in and people are looking at the bottom line rather than the let's just say the cure, to simplify it, things are going to go slightly sideways. It's the way of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think the sweet irony of it is this space is run on the number of patients, and the individuals who only value money more than patient satisfaction, they're leaving slowly and slowly. Yeah, because at the end of the day, they've not seen the growth that they expected. They've not seen the money fly in, and they've got frustrated and they've fallen out of love with it. Now, the people who are in the space, who actually love what they're doing and love to provide the patient satisfaction, know that this is a real thing that we're trying to do here. They're the ones who are going to be here for the long run. So this isn't an overnight thing. We're taking our time.
That is the ethos I was talking about when I gave his introduction. He actually cares. If he really wanted to, he could have set up a clinic 2.5, 3 years ago, just like a lot of these other people out there. And I'm not going to mention any names, but there's one clinic in particular who's apparently lost 2,500 of their patients in the last 45 days.
What?
45
Please
days.
don't say who they are, because
I'm not going to say who they are.
I don't need that aggravation.
There are rumors going around the industry that one of the bigger suppliers out there has literally just completely disregarded customer satisfaction, and they have basically, their numbers have just
So people
dropped.
voted. Are you going to say that people, use a silly old phrase, but it's true, voted with their feet and they thought, you know what, this isn't working for me?
People voted with Reddit. As in the Reddit forums have destroyed businesses. And you know what's the best thing about Reddit? You can never scrub that, which means it's going to be there forever, which means that forever this company has been tarnished by the patients with a negative brush. And it's, to be honest with you, they don't deserve it. The company doesn't deserve it, because no one deserves to be ripped to shreds like that. But in fairness,
this is the joy of social media, isn't it?
But in fairness, if the patients are not getting what they believe they deserve for the extortionate amounts of money they've paid, it's a private system. Nothing's given for free. Okay, so they've paid through their heart and soul and ripped out their stomachs to be able to pay for this stuff. And if they're not getting what they want, they get angry. And I like the fact, my first ever speech, my first ever conference was a CBD Expo. And the first thing I said to everyone, we were just talking to CBD brands. If you don't care about the person at the end of your bottle, if you don't care about the consumers, if you're not working only for them, you're never going to have a business. Because without the consumers, you're nothing. Without consumers, there's no community. And without community, there's no industry. And fact of the matter is, without industry, none of us would be here. We're just guys wandering around trying to sell products that no one wants. So it's all about the end consumer. And that's why I've got respect for Eddie, because Eddie never rushed. He never went down that route and set up a system. He never did the capitalistic CBD thing. Even if that was the original idea, he realized very quickly, no. And it's quite important that more and more, you can call it logical thinking, heart-led capitalists come into this industry, because as long as you're working with your heart, the patient will never begrudge you for making money from them. The patient will be happy. They'll be like, almost make more of me if you keep me happy. But if you're not making them happy, they're never going to want you. Like,
Well,
look at
you
the
know-
best
do you know
plastic
what?
surgeons.
Do you know? Do you
The
know
best
what?
plastic surgeons, they charge their patients an absolute fortune. The patient gets what they want. No one ever complains. It's a private industry. We all
And they all
know
look
we're
like
going to
they
be
come from
paying for this.
Stoke-on-Trent. Yes. Now, moving on. I'm married to a footballer. So, you know what it is? Here's the thing. Customer satisfaction. People go on about, the death of the high street, the death of the high street. I could talk about it for hours. But let's just cut right to the chase. Customer satisfaction. If you come away and it's a rotten experience, you're not going to rush back, any more than if you and it's very interesting. And forgive me for tooting my own horn here, myself and my business partner, Howard Jameson, who co-founded Men's Radio, but we did it. And this
For
is
the people.
true. And we did it for the people to try and help. We're
Hell
not
yeah.
a commercial radio station like the big giants. We could never be like that because, they've got everything sewn up. And for us, we've created a community like you guys do. We hope we've given customer satisfaction. We've built a family here. And everything we do is designed not for us. And aren't we great? Not in the least. Howard never ever broadcasts. He never comes into near a microphone within 5 miles of it. He won't. Quite right. He and I just wanted to help. It's as simple as that. And if it comes from the heart, people know it. And if it's BS, people see straight through it. And this is the mistake so many industries make. You see an advert or you see a product and you say, this is pants. It's just rubbish. So I understand and I respect that you've taken your time, Ed, to do this. That makes perfect sense now. Ollie's introduction, makes absolute perfect sense. Why
Everything does eventually. Just give me a little bit of time. It all makes sense.
No, I haven't
Nothing
got
makes
that
sense
long.
at the beginning.
At my age,
35
Ollie, at my
minutes.
age, I haven't got that long for you to make sense.
You've got loads of time, Russ. Trust me, I'll keep you alive forever with cannabis.
geez,
It's all good.
please.
It's all good. You're never going to die, Russ. You're never going to die.
Now, you sound like my kid. I always go, I'm not going to be Dad. No, you'll all, and I really won't.
Your kid's not a wizard like me. I'm going to keep you alive, Russ.
wizard.
You're going to be my Frankenstein. That's what my Frankenstein.
Yeah, and he was a monster. And look
I'm
what
going
he
to put
did.
2
And look what
CBD
he did
infused
to-
bolts
look
in
what he-
your neck.
look what he did
Your
to his
skin's going to be
creator.
green from all the cannabis you're going to consume, dude. It's going to be incredible. Incredible.
Oh, God.
Now back on with the show. So Edward, question. So I've got 2 questions here. Actually, I've got 3. We've got 15 minutes left. So I want to. Do you want to talk about Ascension Gardens? Do you want to talk more about your journey as a medical student, or do you want to talk more about like a general view of the cannabis industry?
Cannabis industry would be great.
Fine. So let's do that. What is your general view of the current cannabis industry in the UK? As in, where do you see the flaws? Where do you see the benefits? Having taken this backstep view of the industry and almost taking this moment where you stop and watch, having seen that quality's dropped, having seen customer services not being well. Like, what's your view of the general industry? And, where do you see almost like where do you see like a place to kind of fit? Like what do you see as being a necessity for the industry to grow? As in, what do you see it needing?
A uniformed body. We have a lot of brilliant minds and a lot of brilliant people in the cannabis space now. But unfortunately, we're starting to get a few divides of this is one part of the cannabis industry, this is another part. If we all had one uniform body and we actually came together and we put all of our resources and realigned our message, I really think we can start spearheading this movement and actually say, okay, actually have an idea of how and when the cannabis space will get to, a level where people can actually start competing over it, because we're already competing over everything, but there's nothing to compete over. And
we had this conversation though about, you got 4 cannabis experts and you've got 6 opinions. And that's the biggest problem, because, the activists and the advocates and the medical professionals and the capitalists and then the people like me who kind of fit in between all of them, we all think differently. And, we were speaking about one of the meetings you went to about how no one can agree on anything. And there are simple ways to do things, but because it's not positioned in the right way, or because there's too much of a focus on capitalism or too much of a focus on, on socialism, someone disagrees. And the problem is we are all that there are too many opinions. And I one thing I agree with you as well. I like when we first started in this industry, it was a lot more, you could call it was a lot more close knit. There was a lot more camaraderie. I believe now there's a lot more. Good. So the industry's just become a lot more hate filled. I mean, some of the things I hear about myself on a weekly basis, I just laugh. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I'm
like,
really sorry.
insane.
I really must stop saying those.
Yeah,
things.
seriously, you got to get off Reddit, man. You got to stop that.
I'm really sorry.
But it's hard
I can
out
only
there.
apologize.
No, Russ, it is hard out there. And it's got to the point where, everyone almost talks everyone else down. They don't realize that it's actually damaging the community. When you speak badly about...
if you're trying to start something new and you're, as Eddie, just out of, medical school, relatively speaking, Ed, and you're starting and you're trying to convince people to try something new, the last thing you want is people rowing amongst themselves. I know it's human nature, but, it doesn't help us as a consumer, which I'm not really, but as a punter, as a customer, as a potential customer, you walk away from it. You walk away from it. But I got to tell you, Ollie, I know this won't help you, but the radio industry, like for example, when Capital started, it was a family. It was wonderful. Everybody knew everybody else. I can't tell you what that spirit was like. And then it became a public company, and you were a slave to the shareholder. You wouldn't even think it was the same thing.
Part of the reason why I created this show, Russ, was to kind of bring a bit more community back to the industry. If you think about the types of guests we've had everyone. Why? Yeah. Because everyone's opinion matters. Whether you're an activist, an advocate, a patient, a doctor, a specialist, a capitalist, a grower, all of your opinions matter. And that's why I've tried to create this platform with a voice. Like everyone always says to me, they go like, your voice is not the voice of the show, because I don't actually put there's no political agenda. There's no real opinion. Do you know what I mean?
This is beautifully encapsulated from Edinburgh. What do you think of this, Ed? Veronica, who watches every single week and also on the other shows. It's not beneficial for the person who desperately needs the information. Customer satisfaction. That's what it's about, isn't it? That's what it's about. Where do you hope to be in, say, 1, 3, and 5? What's your 1, 3, 5 year plan?
Hell yeah.
1, 3, 5. So 1 year online pharmacy setup and implementing all the patient feedback that we've got over the past 5 months. In 3 years, we hope to have the clinic and the softwares available to make the clinician's life easier to prescribe, because obviously we are a health tech company. We focus on the patient, but we also focus on the healthcare professionals. We make their lives easier.
You've actually been quite disruptive. You've been quite disruptive with setting up your system, because it's very, it's not normal. As in, if you look at the way the systems are being built in the UK right now, your take on it is very different to everyone else, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's
you're there.
Being within being within the medical industry, it's even within the NHS. I noticed a lot of things that could just be done slightly better had there been the right support for clinicians. A lot of doctors' times, not even just doctors, nurses, pharmacists, OTs, physiotherapists, a lot of time is spent doing admin work. A lot of time is spent doing things that take them away from the actual patient. So, now that the medical cannabis space is a brand new industry, why don't we take the things that haven't been done so well in the NHS, and why don't we just fix them from the off in the cannabis space? Why don't we start on a good
Because
note?
Most people who are targeting this space haven't actually got experience in the NHS. There aren't many of you. Like you said, you had 400 people in your year. You're the only one who's gone down this route. So out of 400 people who might have a basic understanding of how the NHS is working, who might be able to kind of disseminate their information and disseminate, their view of the problems into this brand new system, one of you has gone through. Now, one thing you didn't say is well, I've actually met people along the way from other universities. I've never met someone else, Ed. As in thinking about it, I mean, I've gone to 50 expos. I've done the show 68 times. I've got 5,000 connections on LinkedIn. There really aren't that many, if any, medical students. There are 400 in your class. There are 400 in 50 other classes around the UK. There's 20,000 people, and you're the only one I've met. It's mental. It's absolutely mental. And when you actually, sorry, I just kind of had a little pause. I don't know if I zoned out the whole show, but I had a little pause. Went back to that 400. I'm thinking 1 out of 400. It's
a hell of a figure. It's a hell of a figure.
It's not
That's
1
why I
out of
went back on
400.
it.
It's 1 out of 20,000. And that's what we have to realize. There's so many more medical schools out there, and still no one's coming out of it thinking like this. And Ed, he sees problems in the system. He sees problems with the NHS, wants to solve the problems to make sure the cannabis industry doesn't have that. How, as individuals who have never worked within the NHS, how are we ever going to see those problems to fix them for patients? The only people who will be able to fix them are people with a medical education. They're the only ones. Our entire life is in their hands.
Can I give you an analogy? And I don't know where
course.
Ed would sit on this. Elon Musk, love him or hate him, I love him. But anyway, Elon Musk decided he was going to make a car. Did he have car experience? No. Was he up against the most enormous General Motors, Ford, not to mention everybody, Hyundai, Kia, everybody, right? And from nowhere, he did this. Why? Because he rewrote the handbook on how you make a car completely and changed the industry. I'm not here as a fanboy for him or Tesla. I don't have a Tesla. Can't afford it. But that's not the point. The point is it's doable. You can take on, if your vision is clear enough and you're focused enough, it can be done.
You forget that Elon Musk has something like 4.3 billion pound in his pocket from the sale of
That's
PayPal.
because he's not stupid.
Okay.
He's
I'm just saying. So I mean,
person.
if I had 4.3 billion pounds in my pocket from the sale of PayPal, yeah, this would be easy as hell. But not all of us have that. You know, like, yes, he's an extortion.
No.
One thing is, though, Elon Musk is an extraordinary businessman. Businessman.
Ollie,
and that's what he has experience in, right?
Ollie, would it? Yeah, you can be a great businessman or you like, but if you build a car that's a piece of junk, no one's going to buy it.
The Tesla's a piece of junk.
No,
dude.
it's not. It's
not a good car.
Well, we're not going to get into. I don't want to get.
It's not a conversation for today. Okay.
No, I don't want to get.
I'm not getting into this. I'm not getting into this.
God Almighty! I don't want to get sidetracked into this. I don't want to get sidetracked. What I'm trying to say is,
you driven a Tesla?
No, I never have.
It's not a good car.
All right, fair enough.
Just throwing it out there.
All right,
sorry, Elon.
That's your personal,
Mr. Musk. I do apologize.
Personal
He's going to have me killed, isn't he? He is, isn't he?
There's a queue. There's a queue after this show. There's a queue.
Who else is going to have me killed?
I have no idea.
Morrison's, Tesco, Tessa Cohen. She's going to have me got.
Tesco and Morrison's. Right. What I'm trying to say to Ed is that if you keep duplicating a system that doesn't work, you're going to have the same failings and the same mistakes. If you look at it with a tabula rasa, clean slate, then you can, you'll have some hurdles on the way and some bumps on the road, but you're exactly right. Look at what doesn't work and don't replicate it. That's the experience that Ed can bring to this. Apart from his brain and everything else, he knows firsthand what doesn't work, what's a waste of time, what's taking people away from what they're there to do. So if you took the NHS, I could see, thank heavens Ed's agreeing with me, so I'm going out on a limb here, but if you take the NHS, which I worked for as a consultant for over a year, it was this. You want the doctors and you want the nurses and all the other people to be dealing with the patients. What you don't want is them filling in for all this stuff. They're not bank managers. They're people we need. That's what Ed can bring so much with his experience. That's what it's about.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. It's because he has this understanding of how a medical system should work. And he also gets to see the flaws from within the system. It's beautiful when you get to see something up front and see something firsthand, and especially when you learn from it. Because so many people, once again, they're in this system and they see the problems and they just accept them. And they accept them as normal.
You're trying to turn the most enormous juggernaut. If you try and turn an oil tanker around, it carries on for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles before it turns. The NHS is so gigantic, but Ed is starting from something a gazillion times smaller. He doesn't employ hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. That's it. It's much more controllable. Brand new way of medicine.
Brand new way of medicine.
Brand new way of medicine. Hell yeah.
That's my point.
Hell
That's
yeah.
my point.
I got a question. Do you think that there will ever be a time where medical cannabis might not be classified as a specials and just be classified as another medicine? Is there any discussion of that? Is there any dialogue? Is there any are there any doctors out there who are promoting that idea?
At the moment, no. But I think in my lifetime, I would love to see medical cannabis not only as not a special, not classified as a special, but taught within the medical curriculum. There's a lot of good work being done, to go out to medical schools and actually have these discussions. Drug science are doing a lot of fantastic work. They've set up quite a few student bodies, so I'd recommend following their work. But
we've had we've had a few of the drug sciences people on, man.
Brilliant.
They're incredible. They're an amazing bunch. They really are. And I'll be honest with you, I think that the data collection which they're doing alone, I mean, just trying to put some numbers to the people, and you're just trying to, what's the word, quantify the information a little bit so it can actually be analyzed. I think that's very important. The whole the being able to analyze something then means it can be discussed with actual figures. And like a lot of other doctors say, well, we won't do anything until we see the data. It's nice that someone's out there actually accumulating the data. Yeah. It really is. It really, really, really is. So
what
go on,
gets
Ed.
me is how smart all of Ollie's guests are. They're just an extra. I mean, it's 68 shows. God knows how many guests, because it's not always one. And it's like, wow. Yeah.
They're special, aren't they?
Yes. I mean, joking aside, they are. Yeah,
they are. I think they're very special. And to be honest with you, like I said, the whole idea of this platform is to kind of give everyone in this industry a voice. We're directionless. We want to educate. We want people to kind of join our little community, our little network of wanting to make this world a better place for the people out there. And it's important for us to get listened to, because we're doing this for you guys. We're doing this for you.
Eduardo, we've got like 3 minutes. Your platform, what would you like to say?
What would I like to say? To the individuals in the cannabis space, it's time to align our thinking. I think we are doing a lot of great work, but let's do a lot of great work together, because I think we could move this space a lot further. Those who are looking into the cannabis space, ask questions and remain inquisitive. If you have any questions, just ask away. No question is stupid. No question is an incorrect question. Ask whatever you like and inquire, because it may be an option for you, but it also may not. So let's just have the discussion.
I want to add something to that. When you're asking your questions, if someone makes you feel bad for asking your questions, then you're asking your questions to the wrong person. Your questions are never wrong. The person you're speaking to is wrong, and don't let them make you feel bad for humoring this idea of cannabis, because that happens a lot. A lot of people kind of they believe cannabis is right for them, and they're almost talked out of it. And it's important. Listen to the doctor, listen to the medical professional. It's important that you do ask these questions. It's important that you do get what's right for you, because you are what matters. And without you guys, none of us would have a job. And without you guys, we wouldn't have an industry. And you guys are at the core of everything. And your opinions and what you need matters. That's it. And it's important you guys all know that.
Yeah.
Can they get hold of you, Ed? Is there any way people get hold of you? Is there any way people can follow your
how do people
story?
Find you?
Or at the moment through LinkedIn is the best way to get hold of me. So Eddie Milne on my LinkedIn profile.
So it's EDE. It's not Edward. You're just going with Eddie.
Yeah. So EDDIE and then Milne.
Milne, Milne.
Yeah. And that's the best way to get hold of me.
And one more thing. What if people wanted to get in contact? If people wanted to get in contact with Ascension Gardens, and if people wanted to kind of follow your journey and follow your route because you do things properly, and they wanted to kind of watch your journey, how can people follow the story, and how can people keep up to date with what you're doing for the community and the actions which you're taking to make patients' lives better?
I guess for now there isn't a route. There isn't the best method. I think in all honesty, it would generally be LinkedIn for now, but we'll have something up. We'll have something up shortly. Obviously, you know, as we know, the pharmacy, you know, we've closed temporarily to implement a lot of the patient feedback that we've got so far. So that's not the best way to get hold of me. Through LinkedIn is the best way for now.
And on LinkedIn, if you'd like to give the ABC of CBD a plug, we would be most grateful as ever. Eddie Milne, thank you so much. Ollie, great to see you as always.
Always
You
fun.
take care. I don't know where the time's gone. This has absolutely flown. We'll be back, God willing, these days at 6 o'clock next Thursday. Until then, try and stay out of trouble.